Late Renaissance and Reformation. In the 16th century, the ideas and art of the Italian Renaissance spread northward throughout Europe. By the end of this presentation, you should be able to answer these questions and explain the following concepts. What was the Reformation and how did it affect the arts in Europe? The continuation of Renaissance ideas, but the church is splintered. Humanist philosophy. A shift from sacred to secular music. The rise of secular drama. New patrons in the arts. The role of Martin Luther in the Protestant Reformation. In 1517, the German priest Martin Luther publicly rejected several doctrines of the church by nailing his ideas for reform, the 95 Theses, to the door of the church in Wittenberg, Germany. This is a portrait of Martin Luther by the artist Lucas Cranach the Elder. This is the door of the church to which Luther is said to have nailed his 95 Theses. One of Luther's criticisms of the church was the sale of indulgences, shown here in this woodcut. Throughout the Middle Ages and the Renaissance, the Roman Catholic Church was the only Christian church in Europe. One of the ways the church raised money to pay for its elaborate cathedrals and artistic commissions was through the sale of indulgences. An indulgence granted the issuer forgiveness for past or future sins. It was a way to ensure that one's soul, or the soul of a loved one, would not be stuck in purgatory in the afterlife and would be allowed to enter heaven. The Catholic Church still grants indulgences today, but they are no longer sold. The actions of Luther sparked the Reformation, a split in the Roman Catholic Church into two main parts: the Roman Catholic Church, which remains intact to this day, and the groups that protested the corruption of the church, known as the Protestant churches. These Protestant churches include Lutheranism, Calvinism, Anglicanism, Episcopalian, and scores of other Christian denominations that developed in the 16th through 20th centuries, including Methodist, Baptist, and many others. The goal of the reformers was to reform the Roman Catholic Church, but when Pope Leo X rejected the ideas for reform and excommunicated Luther, Luther and the reformers ended up starting their own churches. Followers of Martin Luther's church were initially known as the Evangelists, but then became known as Lutherans. They believed that salvation could be achieved by faith alone, not by doing good deeds. Followers of John Calvin established Calvinism. King Henry VIII started Anglicanism, largely so that he could divorce his first wife. He had 6 wives total. He was excommunicated for his actions, but the Anglican Church remains the primary Christian church in England today. The British monarch is the head of the church. Protestant churches had the following characteristics. There was no sale of indulgences. The Pope is not the leader of the church. There was less extravagance. The church service and the Bible were in the vernacular. Protestant reformer John Calvin believed in predestination, the idea that your salvation was decided, predestined at birth. Only the elect would be saved. Music and dancing were not allowed. The church service was in the local language or vernacular rather than in Latin. The music of the late Renaissance was shifting from the sacred music of the medieval period to more secular works. Take a few minutes to listen to these pieces on your own. The composer Giovanni da Palestrina wrote more traditional sacred pieces such as this Benedictus from Pope Marcellus Mass. A Mass is the traditional liturgy of the Catholic Mass set to music and consists of 5 parts: the Kyrie, Gloria, Credo, Sanctus, and Agnus Dei. Thomas Morley's compositions were more secular, such as this madrigal, Now is the Month of Maying, from the compilation Triumphs of Oriana. Thomas Wilkes composed the madrigal As Vesta Was Descending to honor Queen Elizabeth. William Byrd was another Elizabethan court composer. A group of Italian composers formed the Florentine Camerata, drawing inspiration from the ancient Greeks and inspiring the development of opera. In the 1600s, J.S. Bach composed 300 cantatas, short choral works, for the Lutheran Church to replace the traditional Latin masses that were sung in Roman Catholic churches. The daughter of Henry VIII and his second wife, Anne Boleyn, Queen Elizabeth I, reigned in England during the last half of the 16th century. Her reign is known as the Elizabethan Age and is most well known for the developments in theater, notably the works of William Shakespeare. His works were performed at the original Globe Theatre. Here is the interior of the modern Globe. The original burnt down in 1613. Compare the Globe Theatre to the Kabuki stage in Japan. Christopher Marlowe is a lesser known but also successful playwright of the Elizabethan times. His most well-known play is Dr. Faustus. Some people theorize that Marlowe was actually William Shakespeare. You will notice that he died early, at the age of 29, in the year 1593, which is right around the time Shakespeare's plays started gaining notice. Compare the portrait of Marlowe to William Shakespeare. Shakespeare had 4 periods in his writing career. The early work was based on Roman and Italian models and history plays, followed by his great tragedies, the tragic period, and his romances or tragic comedies. So who was Shakespeare anyway? There are many theories. Some say he was the Earl of Oxford or Francis Bacon or the Earl of Derby or Christopher Marlowe. Others think he really was a man named William Shakespeare from Stratford-on-Avon. The philosophy of the 16th century included a return to humanism. We will discuss 3 humanist writers: Desiderius Erasmus, who wrote the satire In Praise of Folly, Michel de Montaigne, who developed the essay form, and Thomas More, who imagined a perfect society in his Utopia. Desiderius Erasmus was a Dutch writer, scholar, priest, and humanist. His most well-known work, In Praise of Folly, made fun of 16th century leaders and religious figures who he perceived to be corrupt. During the Protestant Reformation, Erasmus remained Roman Catholic and was both sympathetic and critical of the new Lutheran Church. Michel de Montaigne was a wealthy French nobleman and humanist scholar. He developed a new form of writing, the essay, so you have him to blame next time you were assigned an essay in your English class. His writing was influenced by the philosophy of skepticism, or freely entertaining doubt. Sir Thomas More was an English lawyer, monk, and member of Parliament. He is best known for 2 things. First, his 1516 book, Utopia, which described the perfect society where everyone is equal and there is no crime or poverty. Second, for his clash with King Henry VIII over Henry's declaration that the king would be head of the church, and he could legally divorce his wife Catherine and marry Anne Boleyn. More was tried for treason and was beheaded in 1534. He is now a Catholic martyr and saint. Late Renaissance art. In the 16th century, subject matter in art was shifting from the religious art commissioned by popes and other church leaders to a more secular focus commissioned by wealthy merchants and families. This 1533 portrait of Jean de Venteville on the left and Georges de Selve on the right by Hans Holbein the Younger is commonly known as The Ambassadors. Painted at a time during the discord between King Henry VIII and the Catholic Church, this painting shows objects that represent ideas of the time. The objects on the upper shelf include a globe of the heavens, a sundial, and other instruments used for understanding the heavens and measuring time. On the lower shelf is a lute with a broken string, symbolizing the discord in the church, flutes, a hymn book open to a hymn by Luther, a book of arithmetic, and a globe of the land. If you look closely, you can see a tiny crucifix peeking from behind the green curtain in the upper left. You can also see a memento mori, or reminder of our impending death, in the foreground. When a viewer got up close to the painting and squatted down to the right, they could view the distorted image of a skull. Compare the European portrait of 2 wealthy ambassadors to this 1437 Chinese painting, Elegant Literary Gathering in the Apricot Garden. The Arnolfini portrait was painted by Flemish, that's early Dutch, artist Jan van Eyck in 1434. It shows the Arnolfini couple in their bedroom. Notice all of the items representing the fidelity and unity of marriage: the dog, the slippers, the marriage bed, the long green dress gathered at the woman's waist. She may look pregnant to a modern viewer, but that was the dress style in the 15th century. The joined hands, the one lit candle in the chandelier. There are many indications of the couple's wealth: the expensive fabrics, the oranges on the table, the elaborate chandelier. Look closely at the mirror on the back for an image of the visitor to their room. Some critics think this is a marriage portrait and the visitor is marrying them, but this is just a theory. In 1435, Van Eyck was commissioned by Chancellor Roland to paint Madonna of Chancellor Roland. The Chancellor is shown worshiping the baby Jesus, who is offering him a blessing. Notice that Mary is dressed in period clothes from the 15th century and is being crowned by an angel, indicating her royalty. The placement of Chancellor Roland with the Madonna and Child is a bold move, showing that he is intimate with the divine. This painting showcases the revolutionary methods of Renaissance painters. Notice the use of perspective in the view of the landscape and the ornate details of Mary's dress and crown. Another Dutch artist, Hieronymus Bosch, painted the 1510 oil on wood triptych, or three-panel painting with hinged doors that open and close. The Creation of Eve, left panel, the Garden of Earthly Delights in the center, and the Tortures of Hell on the left. Bosch is known for his fantastical imagery. This one is worth taking a closer look. Here is another Bosch work, The Temptation of St. Anthony, which tells the story of St. Anthony the Hermit's constant fight to resist all of the evils of the world. In this detail, you can see the grotesque figures and images, such as a man encased inside a duck being ridden by a naked man table impaled on a branch. The Flemish artist Peter Bruegel painted images from ordinary life. His compositions are cluttered with detail, often with no one single focus. Hunters in the Snow shows unidentified men returning unsuccessfully from a hunt. The dark, bare tree trunks provide a crisp contrast to the white snow, and Bruegel uses perspective to show the distance in the background. Notice how the painting is divided into two triangles, with the men in the lower left and the distant village on the right. Bruegel's Children's Games is even more cluttered, with no real focal point. The subject here is not any particular person or scene, but the games of all the children in this town, surrounded by the everyday activities of the adult townspeople. Fall of the Rebel Angels depicts the scene from the Book of Revelations. German artist Albert Dürer also depicted a scene from Revelations in the 1497 woodcut, Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. A woodcut was made by carving the images into a block of wood, applying ink, and then pressing a sheet of paper over the engraving to transfer the image. Multiple prints could be made with this process. German artist Matthias Grunwald painted panels for the Eisenheim altarpiece, a movable structure with scenes painted on both the doors and inside. It shows visions of hell on earth. In the closed position, the central panels close to depict a horrific nighttime crucifixion. The bottom panel shows the Lamentation, the dead Christ. When the panels are open, the scenes depict the Annunciation, the Virgin and Child with a host of musical angels, and the resurrection. Titian's late Renaissance masterpiece, Bacchus and Ariadne, illustrates the story by classical authors Ovid and Catullus. It's a story of Bacchus, god of wine, falling in love with Ariadne. It was commissioned by the Duke of Ferrara for his palace. Titian is known for his use of bold, vibrant color. Titian's Danae tells the story of the Greek princess Danae, who was imprisoned by her father and then impregnated by Zeus, who came to her in the form of golden rain. Their offspring was Perseus. Italian painter Parmigianino's 1535 painting, Madonna with the Long Neck, is an example of Mannerist style. Mary is depicted with a long neck based on a medieval hymn that compares her neck to an ivory column that supports the church. The Mannerist painters rejected the harmony and balance of the more traditional works, which you can see here by the exaggeration of Mary's figure and the disproportionately giant baby Jesus. Parmigianino crowds the angels in one corner rather than spreading them out evenly, and shows a tiny Saint Jerome in the bottom right. El Greco, a Greek artist living in Spain, that's why he's nicknamed the Greek, painted the Baptism of Christ in 1597 to 1600 as an altarpiece. God the Father is shown in ethereal white at the top, followed by the Holy Spirit as a dove, with Jesus in the left foreground being baptized by John the Baptist. In 16th century Germany, due to the invention of the printing press, engravings were used as a tool to spread the message of the new Lutheran Church to a population that was largely illiterate. Lucas Cranach the Elder and his son Lucas Cranach the Younger created engravings that were loaded with Christian iconography or symbolism. Notice how the message changes before and after Luther started the Reformation. Lucas Cranach the Elder's 1502 woodcut, Calvary, shows the iconic scene of Jesus on the cross. In this scene, he is surrounded by figures wearing 16th century clothes. The message for the viewer is that the teachings of Jesus are still relevant today in the 1500s. By 1529, a decade after Luther nailed the 95 Theses to the church door, the message had changed. The allegory of law and grace. The scene is divided in half by the tree of life, which is dead on one side. The left side illustrates the law, or the Old Testament, with the scenes of Adam and Eve and Moses and an image of a naked soul being tortured as he is judged for his sins. On the right, grace. The same naked soul is achieving salvation through grace, shown by the radiating spirit coming from Jesus and the Holy Spirit, the dove. Cranach, who was friends with Luther, was helping spread the message that the new teachings of the Lutherans, which focused on New Testament teachings of Jesus and justification by faith alone, was preferable to the idea of a judging God, and the weighing of good deeds. By 1550, Cranach's son took this message even further in his woodcut, Luther Preaching with the Pope in the Jaws of Hell. In this scene, Luther is in the center on the pulpit, while the Roman Catholic Pope is agonizing in the jaws of hell in the bottom right. By the mid-16th century, Protestants had cemented the divide with the Roman Catholic Church.